finally, I've got them together in this place right now. We had to put them online because their energy fields are so big, we couldn't squeeze them into an actual physical room. So we got them online here. So before we start, I know that there's a lot of people here that aren't Pacos. And just so you know, when I came to the Andean tradition at first, I didn't know any of these Quechua names, but it just allow the resonance of the names for things just to go into your heart, so that you can receive the healing from it. Sometimes you don't need to know all the details. We're so analytical in our Western minds, and sometimes you just need to feel the resonance of something. And speaking of which, we have a really wonderful way to start this seminar, because a lot of it is going to be using our yache, our brains. I'd like to drop into our sonko, our hearts. So we've invited along some of the Karo elders from the Karo Nation. We have Maximo Apasa Quispe. He is the son of our Ñañay, Doña Monica Quispe Flores, and the eldest and most respected of our Karo elders, Doña Augustina Capa Champi, who was the wife of Don Mariano. They're going to make what's called a wachariqui for us. It's a special invocation to their rual, their nature beings. And it just calls all the power of all the sacred mountains, the lakes, the rivers of their place of their birth. And they're going to send the energy from them into the Zoom. So allow your heart to open and receive. If you have a Misha, you might want to hold your Misha up, or even have, if you know how to call your own rual, you can do that. So, Maximo, listo.
Urpichay sonkoyaywa que panaykuna. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Urupichay, ñañay. Urupichay, turay. So those of you who don't know the Quechua language, it means doves fly from my heart to you. So I've got to see if this works. See if I can do that. Yep. Magic hands. Okay, so so let's get started. I really wanted to bring these four powerhouses together because I just feel like we're going through very, very turbulent time on the planet right now. There's lots of world wars going on. politically, economically, environmentally, and there is, sometimes there's a lot of beauty out there in the world, but then there's also a lot of heavy stuff. We would call this world of living energy the TARIPAY PACHA, and it's a mixture of both Pucha, the heavy energy, and Sami, the light living energy. At the moment, it feels like we have a lot of Hucha going on, and in the Andean tradition, I kind of look to the prophecies, and the prophecies were saying about it being Pachacuti, which is like the transmutation. It's like a turnover of space and time, and it feels very much like we're in that right now. It's almost like we're in the eye of the storm. Sometimes we're in the eye of the storm, and then sometimes we're out in nature and taking everything in. So it's like a in out like a sponge all the time. And I was just really curious how my teachers would take this and what their thoughts were around this. So I reached out to all of them, and they were so great to come back to me so quickly and go, yeah, let's do it. And we've had a week to organize this, and they've been just amazing. So without further ado, I don't need much introduction, but I'm going to introduce Juan here. He is a well-known and very respected elder in the Andean community, and he's known worldwide. And for those of you who don't know him, his name is Don Juan Unistil Prado. He's an anthropologist who discovered the Andean religion for the academy in 1968. In 1979, he found his teachers of Andean spirituality, Don Benito Corihuaman, Don Andres Espinosa, Don Melchor Deza, and Don Manuel Quispe. For over 35 years, he's been teaching this beautiful wisdom that he calls Andean. Thanks to his methodological approach, he compiled all the teachings from these masters to deliver it to the Western world in a way that we can understand. As Pacos, we would call him a chacaruna, a bridge from the Andean world to the Western world. So would you like to give us your speech for this evening?
Hello, welcome. For me, it's a real pleasure to be with these Paco fellows, who are the organizers of the meeting. And I'm so glad about listening our Ero friends. What they did is a very long invocation. And even for us who speak in Quechua, it's a little bit difficult to follow them, because they invoke the deities one after the other. And certain occasions I was able to count 50 or 60 divinities invoking in that way. Anyway, when they do that, you can, if you are a little bit trained, you can feel the presence of the beings. They invoke, of course, insistently Pachamama, which is cosmical mother, not Mother Earth. They invoke Alpamama, Mother Earth. They invoke several Apus, and they invoke several Nustas, which are feminine spiritual beings. But with these invocations, we can count with their presence doing what they do always. They are Runamicher, which means shepherds of human beings. And with this invocation, we are going to ask them to be our shepherds and guide us in the lecture we are going to offer you. Anyway, I want to offer you a short, very short background about what is the Inca mystical tradition, which is the performance in which we are involved and is part of our practices and way of living. The Incas are one of the less known ancient civilizations for several reasons, including how they never developed a writing and reading system. Anyway, until the 50s, early 50s of the 20th century, almost everybody take for granted how the Incas, being a very important society, were banished as a result of the clash with the Western society and the conquest of the Incas by the Spaniard royalty. Anyway, this prejudice about the disappearing of the Incas was being started to be correct by a North American scholar. His name is John Holland Rowe, and probably he was the most knowledgeable person about the Incas in the whole 20th century, including Peruvian scholars. I think the knowledge of Rowe was deeper and more precise than all the other colleagues which were dealing about the Incas. Anyway, in 1946, he published a book, which is Inca Culture at the Time of the Spanish Conquest. And as a conclusion of this book, he made a very interesting statement. He said, the modern age in Peru didn't start with the Spanish conquest and didn't start with the independence of the Republic. The modern times in Peru start with the regime of Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui in the 15th century. What's the meaning of that? The conquest of Peru was one of the main events of the modern times, because as you remember, the Western modern times start with the Protestant reform and the fall of the Eastern Roman Empire. And this is the time in which the conquest of Peru happened. But more or less 1 century before, according to Rowe, the modern times start in the Andes. Why? Because Pachacuti was one of the most remarkable and powerful rulers in the whole history of the world. Because in very short time, he was able to trigger and organize and build an empire which was larger than the Roman Empire. As you know, the Roman Empire built a very enormous infrastructure in Europe, and the Incas did something like that. But the Romans built all this thing in 400 years. The Incas make it in 100 years, which means, just in a very rude way, they were 4 times more efficient than the Romans, being more or less of the same level of evolution. This was important, but in a certain way, the prejudice about the vanish of the Incas continue in the majority of the scholarship and the common people until 1955, in which 2 important things happened. Was one long article of John Rowe, which was published in this year, and the title of the article is The National Inca Movement of the 18th Century. Based on papers, he proved how the Incas were able to survive under the colonial pressure until the 18th century, keeping all the proud of their identity, their royal symbols, and even a royalty which was under the colonial power, but were able to support this cultural independence. And were more or less in the competition with the European royalty in Peru, more or less at the same level of power. In the 18th century, this Inca royalty started a rebellion against the colonial power. Unfortunately, they were defeated. But for 3 years, they were able to rebuild the Inca Empire in a parallel state than the colonial state. At the end, they were defeated for several reasons. It takes us to what is called the Republican times in Peru. Of course, the people accept more or less that, but continue thinking the Incas were vanished in the 18th century. Then an expedition of the University of Cusco, in which my father was the director, went to a very relatively insulated area of the country, which is now known as the Quero Nation. And what the scholars discovered was how there were a set of communities. It's not only one community, but nine Andean Indian communities which make the Quero Nation and were claimed to be the keepers of the Inca tradition. They claim to be direct descendants of the very founder of the Inca culture. But they not only claim that, but they were able to prove it. You see some of them, and you see the textiles they were handling are textiles which are equivalent to the Combi textiles of the royalty of the Incas. They wear the uncu, which is the tunic of the royalty of the Incas. They wear the huarais, the short pants of the Incas. And the designs in their textiles are equivalent to the tocapo designs of the nobility of the Incas in the 16th century. There were survival Incas in the middle of the 20th century. But not only that, they were able to build and use the quipus, who are the note records in which the Inca Empire carried the statistic of the state. Beyond that, they were keepers of certain legends, is a set of legends, of myths, which are the famous today myths of Incari and Collari. For some people, these myths are important only because announce the returning back of the Inca. But if you take a real look of the mythology, it's a mythology of the creation made by a metaphysical god. The metaphysical god in this mythology is named Roal and is equivalent to the Huiracocha, which was the metaphysical god of the Incas. And it's a process of creation because they told us how there were Huiracocha, the creator, how he landed in planet Earth, how he created the moon and to give light to the earth. He created the sun too. He created the first humanity, etc., etc. If you take a look, it's a mythology which is equivalent to the mythology which is in the Genesis book of the Bible. It's the process of creation made by a metaphysical God. Anyway, a very interesting part of that is the announcement of the return back of the Inca to recreate the Inca society. And after this expedition found this myth, several other colleagues of mine started to search for mythology equivalent, and they found them in several parts of Peru, several parts of Ecuador and Bolivia. And one accurate scholar, which is Juan, is an expert in mythology, he found how the meaning of this legend is the existence of the messianic ideology of the Andes. If you take a look of the Andean messianic mythology by Juan, you are going to find all the versions of the mythology. But the messianic ideology is something like the ideology which rise in the Hebrew people about the arrival of a Messiah who's going to be the savior of the people. This prophecy fulfilled with the presence of Jesus, which were accepted by a certain amount of Jews and accepted by a certain amount of Romans. But there were a group of people who didn't accept the role of Jesus, and they are expecting the arrival of the Messiah until today. Anyway, it's interesting to know how is an independent branch of the religion related with the metaphysical God and his creation, and how produced in a parallel to the Hebrew tradition and Messianic ideology. But the thing is, the Messianic ideology of the Andes has a certain process of become fulfilled. And it's very interesting because there are very specific periods included in the mythology. As you are going to see later, we are looking for a new age, a golden age, which is the TARIPAY PACHA. And in the TARIPAY PACHA is going to be a time of Pachacuti. It's a shift of the rules of the cosmos. It's the cosmical shift. And this is going to last 3 years. Then you have a period of preparing the new age, which is going to last 7 years. And then is a period of manifestation of the new age, which is going to run for 12 years more. Two of the masters announced us how the first period started in 1990. If you start to count 1990 to 93, the Pachacuti, 93 to 2000, the time of preparing the new age, and after 2000, the time of the manifestation of the new age, which ran into 2012. It's interesting how 2012 is a date which is correlated with the mythology of the Mayas, the contemporary Mayas. And if you remember, there were a very strong wave about the 2012 and the end of the time because of the Mayan prophecy, etc., etc. It's interesting how these two traditions converge in pointing 2012 as a very important time in which the new age is going to take its first wave of real power. Anyway, the prophecy has certain conditions which make us very special. According to the Andean cosmology, there were 3 kinds of children of God. The Piwiwanawawakuna, who are the common of the Inca Empire, and they are the owners of the labor, Llantay, one power. Then the Chaupiwawakuna, the children of the middle, which were the royalty of the Incas, and they were the owners of the Munay, another personal power. And then the third children of God are us, the Westerns, starting with the Spaniards. And we are the owners of the Yachay power. According to the tradition, these 3 kinds of inhabitants of Peru, which exist today, are going to be invited by Huiracocha, the creator, to a place, to a power place, in which he's going to settle the table and he's going to invite us to a supper, and he's going to repeat his ancient commandment, and he's going to say, Aininakuichis, which means interchange your powers. And now we are not going to interchange only goods or things like that, or harvest or whatever. We are going to interchange our inner powers. In that way, the descendants of the common people of the Andes are going to share with the Incas, with the descendants of the Incas, and with us, Westerns, the Llankay, which is the power of labor. Then, the Chaupiwawakuna, which means the direct descendants of the Incas, which means the Teros, and which means the Pacos too. Okay? The Pacos are the Chaupiwawakuna by privilege. This is another story. But anyway, they are going to share the Munay with the others. And finally, we, the Westerns, we are going to share with all the others the Llankay. If you pay attention, the character of the Western civilization rise just in the 15th century. because until the 15th century, we were under the Dark Ages. What happened in the 15th century? We rediscovered science, which means we start to become Yachay. And if you take a look, the main driving power of the Western civilization is the Yachay, what we call science, hard empirical science. But according to the prophecy, we are going to interchange that, and this is going to be the beginning of the golden age, which is the TARIPAY PACHA. Anyway, this schedule blends very well with what happened with us. We didn't expect to teach that. Ivan and me were using this only for our own benefit because it's a very sophisticated and powerful spiritual art. And then somebody invited us to teach. Was a member of the Minister of Tourism of Peru who invited us to do a lecture about this because there were people looking for this knowledge. It's all the wave of the new age of people who are looking for spiritual performances of every other culture. And the Minister of Culture realized that, and somebody told them we were experts in these spiritual teachings, and they invited us to teach. And then we make certain lectures in the Ministry of Tourism. Then it make us connect with the tourist agents. The tourist agents start to make us connect with some people. And Elizabeth and John were one of the first people of outside we invite to come to us, and we start to run groups, and we start to organize workshops, etc., etc. This is the beginning of the really opening of this tradition become part of the global culture. But the whole thing takes us until 2002. 2002 was the end of this period of preparing because we were able to organize two events. The first was a meeting of healers, which was organized in Washington with some of our partners. And in this meeting were present all the spiritual traditions of the Andean area, which means the Inca tradition, represented by us, and a few other students of Don Benito Jolihuaman. The Inca tradition of Cajamarca, represented by Marco Mosquera. The tradition of the North, represented by two ladies, the Chinguel sisters, and somebody who represents the tradition of the jungle too. All the different traditions, the tradition of the jungle is the tradition of ayahuasca, the tradition of the northern area of Peru is the tradition of San Pedro, the tradition of the Incas is this tradition which doesn't use any psychotropic, but the whole was represented in Washington, and we did it on purpose in Washington, and we did it connecting with the obelisk of Washington because this is the most prominent sacred object of the United States. Intentionally was a connection with the United States. On the other hand, the Huiracocha Foundation, headed by Elizabeth Jenkins, the Liberi Viandanti, led by Celso Bambi, and the Inca group, led by Roberto Sarti for first time. He was starting to teach. We organized another meeting, was the Global PACO meeting, which happened in Grado in 2002. This is a turning point, because after that was a gap of a year in which no meeting happened, and then was a restart of the meetings in 94, which is a sequence with a different character. But this period of preparing ended in 2012, and was the period in which we established the basis of our teaching, me, Ivan, John Wilcox, and Elizabeth Jenkins, which are here. And this is the background I want to offer to you. From my standpoint, this is one of the most sophisticated spiritual art because it's about not only of system of performances, but in the back is a system of levels of consciousness, which is defined by a North American scholar of ontological levels. I'm referring to Houston Smith. The levels, the four basic levels, are not idiosyncratic levels or levels in the hierarchy which is decided by a committee, are ontological levels. And this is very important, which means the Andean system can provide a way of promote yourself across a tangible scale of levels of consciousness. And with that, I'm going to finish my interview. I think I offer you a background which is very well known for the Pacos, but I see this is 167 people. More of them, there are not Pacos, just to let them know how this tradition is not something which was created, was discovered, and is connected with something very old, which is the whole tradition of the Peruvian Andean civilization, which starts more or less in 3,200 years before Christ, which make us the most oldest civilization of the world immediately after of the Sumerian civilization, which is the more ancient civilization of the circum-Mediterranean area, which means we are achieving the benefit of recovering something which is the byproduct of the process of evolution, which lasted for 5,200 years in continuity. And so,
thank you, Juan. Thank you. I could listen to Juan all day long, but he told me I have to be boss here and keep an eye on time for him. That was amazing. This is like just that whole background is just incredible, and thank you for that. That was amazing. So we're going to move to our second speaker now. Joan Parisi Wilcox has studied the Andean sacred arts for nearly 30 years and teaches the tradition to students around the globe. She is the author of Masters of the Living Energy, which I'm sure a lot of you have read. It's an amazing book. And she has written dozens of magazine articles, been interviewed for podcasts and radio, and appeared in several documentary films about the Andean mystical tradition and metaphysics in general. And she has an amazing blog called the Kantiwasi, where she shares her vision of the Andes. And speaking of vision, she is going to be talking to us about Kauai. I'll leave it up to you now, Joan.
Yes, thank you, Helena. And it's wonderful to be with my colleagues and my maestros, and to all of you who are here live or who will be listening later. We just received a beautiful overview from Don Juan, of the cultural and historical aspects, the mythological aspects. I'm going to focus in on, just briefly, because of time constraints, the Pachacuti, not necessarily from the mythological or the Caro point of view, but just in general from some approaches from the Andes. And then I'm going to really take us down to the practical level and just briefly take a look at, if we're in the middle of a Pachacuti and we're trying to realize the TARIPAY PACHA, how are we doing? Okay, so that's where we're going. So a Pachacuti, Pacha means world, realm, it means many things, but world and realm, space and time. Kuti, to return, to go back, or to come back. So Pachacuti is often translated as an overturning of space-time, or a world reversal. And its character can be a golden age or a cataclysmic age. It's a period of change and opportunity, and there's no guarantee about what is going to result from it. And they usually extend over vast periods of time. Juan Poma, who was a Quechua nobleman who was born after the Spanish conquest, but he wrote about the history and the governance of the Spaniards I don't know where he got these numbers, but he was saying his view was that these are Pachacutis are cyclical periods of both destruction and renovation. And the shortest period, he said, was 800 years, and the longest was over 1,000 years. So they're relatively rare, and we have plenty of time to do our work. The TARIPAY PACHA as a golden age is another aspect of what can result from these world ages. We have these world ages. We can look at Pachacutis as these vast world ages, and the TARIPAY PACHA as one kind of quality we can realize in these world reversals. I'm going to be talking just a little bit about an anthropologist whose name is Constance Classen. And she also defines Pachacutis as ages or worlds. But she says that the Pachacutis, these world reversals, tend to occur at the end of a world age. And they're periods of upheaval and this reversal of the potential reversal of what is happening to something new, but as a mediating period of the sacred with a highly fluid and maybe even a dangerous fluidity during which human beings can change and evolve. And as we said, it can be in a cataclysmic way, or it can be in a very, beneficial and glorious way. But they tend to occur, especially the chaos, the fluidity, toward the end of a world age. And so the overturning of space-time is what precipitates, perhaps, the ending of one world age and the beginning of another. The reason I'm choosing to talk about Constance Classen is I'm going to use a metaphor of hers or an approach of hers a little bit in a moment to talk about our human world. And one of her specialties is to take the larger Andean cosmovision, the macroscopic, and to see how the Andeans bring as above, so below, how they take what they think of as their cosmovision and the structure of the Hanak Pacha in the world and impose it or superimpose it on the human body. So she says we can think about a Pachacuti as a body turning around and facing in the opposite direction. And as that happens, the structure of the past becomes submerged into the fluidity of the future, and the world can be reconstructed, reorganized, remade, renovated, if you will, according to new principles. Okay. But this turning, this world reversal, the Pachacuti, can be a time of chaos as things are shifting and changing, and the old is morphing into the new. And that's kind of what I want to focus on, because my kind of approach in this webinar is to say, how are we doing? We're in the middle of a Pachacuti and we're trying to manifest or realize the TARIPAY PACHA, this golden age. How are we doing? Well, that's an immense question, and I'm just going to narrow it down radically. Using Kawai. Kawai, we have a mystical body, just like we have a physical body. We have sensory organs, sight, smell, touch. We have mystical anatomy, you might say. We have mystical perceptual organs called the nyawis. They're mystical eyes. And according to the tradition, we have 6 eyes on the front of 6 mystical eyes, 6 nyawis on the front of our body, and 1 nyawi on the back of our body. And clear seeing is really using these 3 upper eyes. Our 2 physical eyes are also nyawis, mystical eyes, and the 7th eye, which is in the middle of the forehead. The human capacity here is called Kawai, which is vision, but as clarity, as being the seer, as seeing reality as it really is, stripped of our story and our projections, our wishful thinking, or even our pessimism, but seeing reality as it really is, both the physical world and the metaphysical world. So I'm going to bring it down to the physical world and just check in on how we might be doing. And I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm just choosing two examples. One that is about the lightness of our being, or a movement towards Sami, or the light living energy, and one that seems to be moving us toward an expression of our heaviness, or our hucha. So the first example is that it has to do with spirituality or religion. And there's been a very interesting trend in the past decade or two. It seems to be accelerating a little bit, where this is especially true. Most of this data was gathered in the United States, where people have been asked about their religious affiliation or their sense of spirituality. And there's been a growing trend to move away from saying I'm religious to saying I'm spiritual, but not religious. It's the way people are self-identifying more and more. And one of the, what does that mean? This is how people are expressing it. That they're not just learning about God or about nature or about spirit. They're not being told about it. They're not just reading it in the Bible, but they're having very deep personal experiences of connection. This is what we call yachai. Yachai is understanding, and it's also perception, but through personal experience. So their yachai, their identity seems to be moving from belief only to experience. And they're experiencing a reconnection with nature. They're experiencing a personal, almost transcendental connection with whatever God is, with the Creator. Feeling a personal identification with it, a deep connection with it, without separation. They're feeling that there is some deep connection in the whole living universe that they were not aware of before. So they're experiencing what I would term a transcendental identification with themselves, with life, with nature, with the living universe, with whatever God is, with animals, with other human beings. And this kind of revisioning of the self as sacred is happening across all demographics. It's equally true for men as women, although slightly more women report this. It's true across all age groups. It's just as common for a 20-year-old as a 65-year-old. It's true across all economic stratas, from the wealthy to the less wealthy, to the poor. It's true across all political affiliations, to people who claim as a conservative or liberal or anywhere in between. And it's even true for people who are still very actively involved and identify with a religious organization, with a church, a synagogue, a mosque. They're not giving up their religiosity. They're just expanding how they feel about who they are as a spiritual religious person. So they're still active in their religious communities, their churches and stuff. It's not causing them to leave. They're just expanding. I think it's an awakening, or maybe a reawakening of the sacred, beyond labels, beyond human authority, beyond organizational structures, beyond perceptual restrictions. One way to look at it is it's a loosening of dogma and a deepening of what I would call spiritual values. This is like walking up the conscious patanyan, which is a developmental, it's a schematic of the developmental consciousness of human beings. And as we move up the conscious patanyan, like at the third level, we would say, my church. I know the one true God and you don't. Things like that. It's about division and more in its heavy aspects. There's light aspects too. But at the fourth level, we see beyond all of these labels and symbols and signs, and we say we're all human beings. We're all an integral part of a connected universe, and we're all connected to God, whatever God is. So it seems to be a little step up the conscious pacha. So that seems like a very beneficial change that's happening in this period of Pachacuti. On the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to use politics. Well, not really politics, but governance. How we choose to be governed and how we allow others to govern us. And there we're seeing more heaviness. In fact, we're seeing some worrying trends in this human world. Over the last few decades, there has been a lessening of the embrace of democratic principles. There has been a loss of democracies, and there has been a gain in authoritarianism and hybrid authoritarian regimes. So there's been very few democracies created and very few countries that are adopting, or there are fewer countries that are adopting democratic ideals like free speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of thought and a free press and separation of powers and things like that. On the other hand, there's been a growth of authoritarian regimes. We can look at Poland, Hungary, Thailand, India, the Philippines, Venezuela, places that used to embrace democratic ideals or were democracies are no longer, or hybrid. So that, but what's going on that's even more worrying is that there's a deep divisiveness between kind of two worldviews that is precipitating increasing violent rhetoric, violent ideas, violent actions. We just had an attempted assassination on former President Trump. Okay, the catchword is tribalism. We're retreated into tribes, and we say, my tribe, not your tribe. Okay, my tribe's the good tribe, the intelligent tribe, and so on and so forth. It's division rather than connection. So it's more of a worrying trend. And why might this be? I'm going to take just a few minutes to go back to Constant Klassen and say, looking at this from the perspective of the Andean mystical system, how might we be able to make some sense of this? I'm going to stay with the governance and the political issue for a moment. And Constant Klassen said that the Pachacuti can be mirrored in the body. It's a turning around of the body and facing an opposite direction. Or it's the human standing on its head versus its feet, upside down. And so the structures of the past, she say, become submerged in the fluidity of the future. And the world can be restructured according to new principles. Just to get through this very, very quickly, with the Pachacutis, we're talking about space and time. The Andeans structure time. They spatialize time the opposite than we do in our culture. For us, the past is behind us and the future's in front of us. We're walking from the past into our future. For the Andeans, the future is behind us and the past is in front of us. Why might that be? I talked about those nyawis, those mystical eyes, a little bit ago. We have 6 of these eyes looking in front of us at the past. We have 1 eye at the base of the tailbone looking behind us at the future. So if we look at if we're trying to figure out how are we doing in this time of change with the political thing, politics as an example, we could say that those who are looking, those who are valorizing the authoritarian, the move toward authoritarianism, are standing and looking at the past. We have 6 eyes looking at the past. We can see it clearly. We can get fixated on it. We can even get trapped in it, okay? And what is the past? The past is about certainty. It's about the known. It's usually very nostalgic, although we can trick ourselves about the past and hide things from ourselves and pretty things up that we don't want to really, that we didn't like from our past. In terms of the political body, it's about looking for certainty, okay, for the known, for stability. There's a nostalgia for the past, to the greatness we once had, okay, the power we once had. All we have to do is look at Vladimir Putin's speech after he invaded Ukraine. And he gave an hours-long speech that was a history lesson in the power, the glory, and the valor of the old Soviet Empire. And that he wants to be like Peter the Great and revive the old empire. In our more modern world, it might be the longing for what we've lost. We've lost the certainty of all those manufacturing jobs and technology. A lot of middle class, non-college educated people are out of jobs, inflation, gender fluidity. What does it mean? What does marriage mean? There's just all kinds of loosening of labels and definitions and comfort zone stuff, okay? But what happens if we make a pachacuti? What happens if we make a turn? And I'm suggesting that some people have made a turn. And keeping time spatialized as the Andeans have done, when we make a turn, then we're looking at the future with 6 eyes, okay? And we have 1 eye to the past. And there's a group of people that are the ones that are resistant to this, the way things have always been done, authoritarianism, nostalgia for the past, are the people who are looking at the future through their 6 eyes. And they're seeing this sacred fluidity. And yes, maybe chaos. But within that sacred fluidity, that ability to reverse the world and restructure the world, they're seeing the evolutionary force. The evolutionary force is the force of change, of adaptation to new environments, okay? To taking the best of the past that works and then adding to it so that we can be adaptable and changeable and survive in new ways. So I'm just very quickly, I'm going to reduce down some of the things I said to explain this, but just very quickly, I'm saying that there's these 2 opposing worldviews, like reversals, pachacutis, stances within the pachacuti. And the people that are now have turned and are looking at the future have 1 eye looking at the past and say, yes, we want to see our mistakes. Yes, we want to see what we did wrong, but we also want to take with us what we did right. But we want to invite in this evolutionary energy that can help restructure the world in new ways. Okay. And then there are all these people in the middle who are just seeing the chaos. They're not facing either way yet. They're letting the pachacuti go by and say, I'm leaving that for everybody else. I don't know what the hell to do. And they're either checking out or they're just leaving it to other people. Okay. I'm suggesting that this is one way to see the reality of what's happening in our world using the concept of a pachacuti, a world reversal, and the opportunity to create a TARIPAY PACHA, a golden age, through this Andean lens. And I want to just end by saying, what do we do? What's the path forward? And I want to suggest, like Constant Klassen does, that we take the global or the universal down to the local and the personal, where it's more manageable, where we can have a greater impact. And I'm offering the suggestion, or at least the possibility, that we don't need to worry about the pachacuti or the TARIPAY PACHA out there. We need to look in here. What's the path forward? To take personal responsibility, to evolve and grow and adapt the self, to choose with clarity, with kauai, the direction we want to take ourselves, our families, and our culture in. The TARIPAY PACHA is normally translated as the age of meeting ourselves again. I'd like to suggest we need to retranslate that, because the age of meeting ourselves again, if the Pachacuti is a reversal, is world turning, then we can just turn on the horizontal plane, right? And the changes are meeting ourselves again, meeting ourselves again, meeting ourselves again. And you know what? It's the same damn self every time. Or it can be cyclical and more vertical. And if we interpret the TARIPAY PACHA as the age of meeting ourselves anew, bringing in the fluidity, the evolutionary energy of the future, then it's a cycle that has verticality to it. Okay. But we have to start with ourselves. This is a path, the Andean path is a path of personal responsibility. If you want a golden age universally, create a golden age in yourself. Once you're able to create more of a golden age in yourself, then begin to expand and cultivate the golden age in your ayu, in your family. And then you can expand out even further and cultivate the conditions for the golden age in your karu ayu, your extended relations. And if each one of us does that, we're like nodes that get hooked up. And then we're fueling the greater global universal TARIPAY PACHA or Pachacuti. So I'd like to end by just suggesting that the Pachacuti really is not out there. The Pachacuti is in here, in each one of ourselves. Thank you.
Wow. So true. Thank you, Joan. That was amazing. And it does give me a little bit of hope that if we do the work on ourselves, we can really get through this crazy time. So our next speaker is Elizabeth Jenkins, and she is, again, one of these people that doesn't need to be introduced. She is an international best-selling author of 3 books on Inca nature wisdom, and a 35-year student of the Q'ero Pacos. Her best-selling book, The Return of the Inca, is currently available in 26 languages. To honor the Incan law of Aini, sacred reciprocity, she founded the Viracocha Foundation in 1996 to serve the Q'ero community in Peru. From 1998 to 2024, Viracocha Foundation has completed numerous projects in Hatuncaros, culminating in 3 enormous water reservoirs in response to global warming. In January 2021, Elizabeth co-founded the Global Paco School together with 12 of the most highly acknowledged Pacos of Hatuncaros. In August 22, together with Juan and about 80 Q'ero, they inaugurated the Hatuncaros Cultural Center in Cusco. And this year, the Viracocha Foundation has focused on regenerative tourism in response to the threat of toxic gold and silver mining on Apu Huamanlipa, which is a really sacred mountain in the Q'ero Nation. And Elizabeth is going to be talking to us tonight, well, on whatever time it is with you, about the Pachacuti Nustas. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Aloha, everyone. It's such a pleasure and honor and a gift to be here today with you. Morning for me. And Helena, thank you so much. And to all my Paco Masikuna, thank you for being the impetus behind this. Perfect timing. And it's a joy to be with Juan, Ivan, and Joan. We were just talking about how almost 30 years ago when we were all together in Peru, you know, with all the events that led to Joan's book and her interviews with the Q'ero and all this magic that has happened over the years. My deepest gratitude to Juan Núñez del Prado. Finally, they figured out that your birthday is a national holiday. Juneteenth, you were born on the same day as my husband, Barney. You know, this is a celebratory day for sure. All right. Well, I want to talk to you guys, just taking off from the magnificence that Juan laid out before us, this foundation of understanding, and Joan taking it into the personal. I'm going to go, I think, even more deeply into the personal. Starting from, I think I'm just going to talk about in 2020, I had a dream where I was at my house and I was talking over the backyard. I was talking to my friends in Cusco, and I was looking over the back fence, and my friends in Cusco were looking over their back fence, their backyard fence, and they were looking at talking to people in Queros, and we were all having this conversation back and forth like neighbors across the backyard fence. And in 2021, when we founded the Texemuyo Paco Yachaywasi, the Global Paco School, and we were all on Zoom, and I was talking to Cusco, and we had Pacos in Queros, and we were all speaking together, I realized, oh my gosh, here my dream has manifested. And this is the time we're in now. This is about manifesting our dreams. This is about creating what we really want to have. Certainly the world needs renewal. Certainly we need to have that beautiful vision of what could be created. The whole concept of a golden age, the TARIPAY PACHA. But how do we do that? As Joan was pointing to, during the pandemic, when we opened the Global Paco School, one of the really striking things that Doña Agustina, one of our Quero Pacos who opened with the invocation today for our webinar, she said something so striking to me. She said, if everyone on earth stopped right now and made an offering to Pachamama, the pandemic would be over. This is a really interesting concept because in the Quero point of view, what's going on in the world stems from an imbalance, stems from the loss of our sacred symbiosis with Mother Nature, our sacred symbiosis with our communities, our respect for the interchange of knowledge, of living energy, of just interaction, harmony that needs to be created through our own interactions with nature and with each other. So this is how we understood what she was talking about. When the other thing that she said, which was just fascinating, what we kept hearing, and now it's over 500 Quero healings that Freddie and I have witnessed and been translating, been involved in for all kinds of people across the planet. Listening to their invocations, there's a constant invocation of the Pachacuti Ñustas. And who are the Pachacuti Ñustas? This was a question that kept coming up. They keep invoking these Pachacuti Ñustas. Who are they? And Doña Agustina, we got a chance. We have over 2,000 hours now of recorded wisdom from the Quero, which is from this beautiful pool of knowledge and wisdom I'm sharing with you today. Doña Agustina said, the Pachacuti Ñustas were created in the time of Pachacuti. They are the primordial forces of creation, but the Ñustas in general. The Quero have explained them to us, really amplified our knowledge about Ñustas. Then the Pachacuti Ñustas are the Ñustas that Pachacuti was able to ally, that allowed Pachacuti and Mama Anahuarque, right, the Sapa Inca and Sapa Coya together, to expand the empire in such a short time, as Juan was explaining to us in the beginning of our talk today. In such a short time, it is the ability to invoke this power of nature, this force of transformation. And this is what we've heard in all of these healings, the invocation of the power of transformation to create the transformation in the physical body, the manifestation of health, the manifestation of well-being that can happen at times miraculously. In our school, we have actually a woman who just is a first year this year who has almost completely healed her head tremors. And she was telling us actually just yesterday that the doctors told her to do this, she would have to create new neural pathways. Okay. We have to create new neural pathways. We have to create new ways of being in our society. From the creation within our body, literally, to the creation in our families, our homes, our workplaces, and our society. This is the transformation that we're all looking for and talking about here. This time, this possibility. But as Pacos, as Joan was mentioning to us, this is about personal responsibility, about personal intention. What do we want to create? And I would like to offer this possibility, what the Q'ero have taught us over the last 4 years, is spending about 12 hours a week with these 12 Q'ero Pacos with this amazing depth of knowledge, and trying to really enter their worldview and live in it. We see everything reflected in the Haiwariqui, right? Which is the Q'ero name that many of you know, the word despacho, the offering. This is the way that we mediate our relationship with nature. This is the way we establish the right to receive everything that we have by giving. The Wahariqui, the invocation, has been described to us as all the love that you generate in your heart and you allow to flow up and out through beautiful words that are delivered to the nature beings, who then offer back to us all of their sacred Sami, this light living energy that we need to live. All of the oxygen that we breathe, all of the food and our clothing and our houses, everything comes from Pachamama. So we're always behind in our Aini. We can always offer more. And in the making of this Haiwariqui, this traditional Q'ero offering, is all the keys for the power of manifestation. Because of Juan Núñez del Prado, we understand about the right, left, and Chaupi. We understand that the Q'ero, in the creation of the Haiwariqui, this is a traditional structure that all 12 of our Q'ero Pacos told us. There's a little bit of variation, but basically, when you make your offering, the right side is offering 12 quintus of 3 to all the dynamic forces of nature, the apus, the masculine. Then we offer on the left our quintus, our groupings of coca leaves, to Pachamama, and the feminine, the fecund, the receptive powers. But in the center is the place of the gold and silver ñustas. On the right side, you make the offering to the silver ñustas, who are the makta, the masculine ñustas. And they have this force of manifestation, these primordial forces of creation and literally physical manifestation in the world. On the left-hand side, we have 8 quintus to the golden ñustas, who are the female Nustas. And these two together create the manifested world. So literally, this is like a recipe for manifestation. We can, so what I'm suggesting is that we can literally follow this code of manifestation, speaking directly to the forces of nature, and create new things. One of our teachers, I know many of you know, Papa Don Umberto Sonjo, told us, as we were doing this grand experiment of can we really learn the Q'ero tradition over the internet through Zoom? Can we actually receive karpais and experience the living energy and the teachings this way? And he said, of course we can, in your computer. Here we are in the heart of the computer. And this computer, this new creation of people, is full of Nustas, because Nustas made this creation of the computer. What a genius perception. Okay, so in offering to the right and the left and the Nustas in the center, what our teachers have told us is when you offer to your 12 Rual, you respect the sacred geography that you live inside of. This can be seen in Cusco. We know that they're the 12 Apucuna, the 12 Rual, the guidance, the guiding nature beings of Cusco. There are the 12 Rual of Queros. We all have our own sacred geography that we live inside of. I have 5 volcanoes in my sacred geography and 3 giant, they're called the Kihawahine. I'm on the big island of Hawaii, and they manage the liminal space between the water and the ocean and the land. These are very powerful beings in the Hawaiian tradition. But these forces that we can call on to help us to literally stabilize our energetic field within this chaos of the Pachacuti, relying on our nature beings. Our nature beings are not shifting and changing. Well, some of them are, but basically they're the stability. The sun is still rising. The moon is still rising. The stars are still shining on us. And this is the stability that I think we can count on and look for, not our human governing structures, but really the larger cosmic order that we can find in Mother Nature surrounding us. So the Pachacuti Nustas are these Nustas that we call on for the transformation. When we call on the Nustas in the center of our Haiwarikwi, our offering, we can call the Pachacuti Nustas and ask them, give them the love from our hearts and ask them to give us a beautiful world. This is something that we can do. This is physically possible to do at any moment. We make our offering and we receive with complete trust. And, you know, this is the double edge of the Western mind. It gives us all this fabulous power of explanation, as Juan has so remarkably observed many times. We have the capacity of the explanation. What our Q'ero teachers always laugh at us because they say, we could never even ask our teachers questions. We had to learn everything by observing and going with them as they performed their ceremonies and watching. They never told us anything. Here we are, giving it all to you on a platter. Now, go and do it. Follow the protocols. Within the Haiwarikwi is a key called Manyarikwi, which means that when you make your request for your happiness, your health, your well-being, and your physical abundance, you ask without greed for what you can truly be responsible for and what you can give back to your community. And this is the key. I think what the world we're living in right now, and what our teachers tell us is nature, Pachamama and the Apus, they are providers. They will give whatever we ask for. But we have to be intelligent in our request. We have to ask in a measured way, without greed, for what we can truly handle and give back to our community. So I'll leave you all with that thought. We can do this. We can create a beautiful future together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It is really, somebody was asking in the questions there about, what is Hawarikwi? And from my understanding, it is to offer with your own hand. The carol would make dispatchos, which usually means to send. This is like to offer with your own hand. So that's what Elizabeth was talking about there. Okay, so our final speaker tonight is my friend, Ivan. Ivan is the son of Juan, and he received his first initiation at the age of 7 when he went with his father to Coluriti, which is a really sacred place in high up in the Andes. So he really started his journey into the Andean tradition way back at the age of 7. And then when he went to university, he decided to study to be an engineer. But all the time while he was studying to be an engineer, he was still teaching the Andean tradition to people. And then when it came to the end of his time at university, he had the choice of whether to go on to become an engineer or to become a Paco and teach the Andean tradition. And thankfully for us, he chose the latter. He's been teaching alongside his father, Juan, for over 30 years. And now they're somewhat of a ranty. In simple terms, we would call a ranty a dream team. They finish each other's sentences if you ever see them working together. Ivan is a born organizer. He arranges their teachings around the world and takes care of all the travel and accommodation for anybody that wants to come with us to Peru. He's also the controller of tonight's webinar, so if there's any technical faults, it's down to him. So I'll hand you over to Ivan, who's going to be talking a little bit about the myths and the origin stories.
Thank you, Helena. Again, thank you very much for this wonderful idea. It's always a beautiful thing to find the space to share those things that we love so much. And you have organized a beautiful Tawantin here, the 4 of us around you, being the center. And I hope people around the world who's watching live and the people who will see this later on the record will enjoy that as much as I am enjoying it. Thank you again. Well, I decided to share with you something which is a little bit of the myth of creation of the Incas that Juan mentioned before. And it's this process of creation of the world in our own terms. Our creator, Viracocha, is a very special creator because he has a particularity of never stop creating. So our creation is not one single event, is not one single act. He keeps creating all the time and goes up and down from the heaven, and he keeps talking with people and doing things. And he even correct himself. Well, I will not put it like that. I will say he improves his creation on the way, which gives us a really nice and fluid and really inspiring image of God, which is what we have. Okay, and in this part of the myth, we talk about how he created the earth and the things we see. Of course, the first part of the creation of Viracocha was to create the earth. And when he just created the earth, he decided to come down to earth. And as is natural, he came down to earth in the what is called the Pacarina, the origin place for the Incas and the culture in America, which is the Titicaca Lake. So when Viracocha comes down to the Titicaca Lake after creating the earth was in the dark, of course. So he created the moon. And then when the moon rise for the first time, he was able to see his creation and he liked it very much. He loved the earth and so this beautiful earth he have created under the silver light of the moon. And he realized that it was empty. So he decided to populate the earth. So his next creation was the Ñauparuna. Ñaupa means ancient, old, and Runa means human in a general way, it's like kind. We can call the Ñauparuna the ancient humanity. So he created these really special beings, the Ñauparunas, and he granted them with enormous powers. So the first humanity, the Ñauparunas, were really powerful beings. And he put them on the earth and he allowed them to use their powers. And they did. With their enormous powers, they started to forge the earth as it is, to push the ground and create mountain ranges, to open valleys and around the river, allow the rivers to run, to create the lakes and all the beautiful things that we can see today on the earth. All those were made according to this myth by the Ñauparuna, the ancient humanity. Viracocha, of course, created them and give them the earth and allow them to use their powers, inspire them to use their powers. And they did well. And Viracocha saw that they were doing so well and they were making this beautiful earth even more beautiful using their powers, that Viracocha decided to grant them even with more power. He was willing to really make them something like gods, like himself. He came down to the earth again and offered them those powers. But the Ñaupas, who were such powerful beings, they were so full of themselves that they couldn't get it. They were so proud and their pride didn't allow them to see the opportunity. So they rejected the offer of Viracocha and they say, no, thank you. We are okay with our powers. We can do well. We can do anything on this planet. And we are just fine. Thank you very much. So Viracocha was a bit disappointed because he told them about the Aini and the reciprocity, which is his law, his only rule, and they were not able to follow it. Because Aini, giving and receiving, reciprocity have two moments. It's a moment to receive and it's a moment to give. They receive enormous powers, and when they were offered with more, they didn't want to take. So Viracocha decided that he could improve his creation. And then he created the sun. And when he created the sun rise for the first time and the start to shine with this bright light, bright, strong light. And the Ñaupas, who were created under the light of the moon, couldn't stand the light of the sun. It was too strong for their eyes and their skin, and they felt that they were burning because of this powerful light, and they ran and hid. And they went down into the air. They returned back to the places of origin, to the Pacarinas, as we call them. So they went down into the earth and they hid in the caves and the lakes and the springs, and they went underground to save themselves from the light of the sun. And they stayed there. They never die. And they are latent and they are still alive underground. And even now, every time we see the events of nature like earthquakes or tsunamis or hurricanes, we say it's the Ñaupas that are still underground, reminding us of how powerful they were. So they didn't die, but when they lose the opportunity to interchange, they were left on the side. They lose contact with the mainstream of the creation. Okay, and that's what happens according to our tradition. You are not punished, you are not killed, but if you don't honor the Aini, you may lose the contact with the mainstream of the creation, with the mainstream of life, which is for everybody. And you are left on the side for a while. And you may re-engage later. That's what the traditions say. You don't die, you are not punished, you just stay on the side. And that's what happened with the Ñaupas. But the Ñaupas went down and they stay in the ground and they are still there. But the beautiful earth that Viracocha created was empty again. Some traditions say that during that time, the sun saw that the moon's light was so bright as his. And he got a bit jealous. So he throws some ashes on the face of the moon, and that's when the light of the moon become milder and softer and cold. Okay. And then Viracocha saw his earth under the light of the moon and the sun empty again. So he decided to improve his creation, to populate the earth once again for the second time, but this time in a different way. And then Viracocha, who is also a potter maker according to our tradition, and a gardener too, he decided to use clay to create and to model himself figurines of couples made in clay. He made many of these figures, and he traveled around the world placing these couples of clay in the pacarinas of the world. So he went and planted them in caves and lakes and springs in the underground. And after this journey of creation, he returned back to the Andes and called the power of the fire. And the fire cooked those figurines and they become alive. They came out then from their origin places and they start to populate the earth. But they were created all different. Okay, this is a creation that takes place in diversity. They have different colors of skin and hair and eyes and dresses and styles. They speak different language and they develop different traditions and spiritualities and religion and every single thing that you know that exists on earth. And he always tells them that Aini, reciprocity, is and should be always the only rule. So now these people have populated the earth. Viracocha gave them a main power, the power of labor, the power of Yankai. And they grow and they expand and they will start to touch with other groups and get in contact with other groups because the space on the earth is limited. And then in the confines, there's the conflict started. So he decided to create again and create Inkari and Koyari. And he sent them to organize these people and to found a new civilization and a new way of doing. And so they did. They were given with another power, the power of Munai, the power of will and love. And with the power of love and will, they managed to organize these people. And they started to build what was first, according to our tradition, the Inca kingdom. And eventually their descendants were the ones who built the Inca Empire. So these people, using both powers, these different groups of people, they built an empire. Using the Yankai, the power of labor, and the Munai, the power of love, were able to create this ideal empire that the Inca Empire is as we see it. Historically, it's a fact that the Inca Empire is the only creation in history of an empire where there was not poverty or hunger, and it's been proven. So the Aini must have been working, and the Munai and the care of the Munai must have been working very well for them to be able to do that. So then the traditions say that time passed, it's been a while, and with the time, these two children of God a little bit forget about the Aini and they start to misbehave with each other. And that's when Viracocha decided to create the Westerns. The Westerns were created in a distant place called Europe today, and they were given with another power, the power of Yachai, or the power of the intellectual knowledge. And they were sent by God to come to the Inca Empire and to take the power and rule in the name of Viracocha, in the name of God. So they did. And for the last 500 years, they have been ruling and living together, but times are changing now. We are in a Pachacuti, it's a time of transformation, and there is a new way to do. Our traditions say, as Juan mentioned, that in the time of the change, Viracocha is going to come down again to this world and is going to call his 3 children around Misha. Misha means sign in the Inca tradition. Is this pack we have as Pacos, but is also a sanctuary. And in the tradition, we know that Viracocha is going to call his 3 children and command them again to make Aini. But this time they are going to share their inner powers. So the commons of the Incas, owners of the power of labor, are going to teach the Yankay, the labor, the work to the other 2. The owners of the intellectual knowledge, the Yachay, the Westerns, are going to teach their Yachay to the other 2. And the nobles of the Inca, the elders of the Inca, the Queros, are going to share their Munai with the other 2. And in that way, these 3 kind of children of God are going to become full owners of the 3 powers. According to the tradition, the owner of one of these powers is called in a particular way. So if we learn and own these 3 powers, we all are going to become Tukui Munai Niok, full owner of the power of love and will. Tukui Yankay Niok, full owner of the power of work and labor. And Tukui Yachay Niok, full owner of the intellectual knowledge. But if we all become owners of these 3 powers, then there's not going to be difference anymore in between different children of God, because we are going to become the same. And there's going to be just one kind of children of God, all brothers and sisters, owners of the same power. And in that moment, we are going to start to live and to create what is called the TARIPAY PACHA, the time of the human understanding of this new golden age that we are expecting to come now. Of course, the main event of that process is the returning back of the Inca and the Coya, a royal couple. That are not, of course, not going to be Pachacuti and Manahuarca like in the 15th century. It's going to be another couple of people, a man and a woman, because women and men in the Andean tradition have exactly the same dignity, so they are capable to do exactly the same things, including the Enlightenment. These 2 people are going to rise as 2 persons who are going to incarnate the Enlightenment once again. That is the idea of the returning back of the Inca. And as keepers of that quality, that personal quality, they are going to be able to guide us and everybody into what is the TARIPAY PACHA. And they are going to share with us the secrets or the way of building this new age. That's what the returning back of the Inca and the prophecy of the TARIPAY PACHA tells about that. So that is God's creation. And he's going to intervene once again. He's going to teach us again, make Aini, share your powers. And that is what we are supposed to do. In our trainings, the Paña, the Chaupi, and the Yoke are organized in training and teaching people how to deal and how to become masters of these three powers, the Munai, the Yangai, and the Yachai. So in a way, we are training people to be full citizens of the New Age. And it is like that. The New Age is global, it's for everybody. We all are going to live it. But as we were saying before, we have to start by ourselves. We have to build that New Age in ourselves. If we make us that, we are going to be able to influence the people around us, and maybe these people is going to influence other people, like in a chain reaction. Because it's all about Aini. The new way of living, it's just be in a certain way. The normal thing, what everybody does, is that people just react to what you do. So if you are careful and kind and respectful, and you offer that, what is that you are going to receive? Of course, care and love and kindness. I love something that Elizabeth has been saying a lot lately, and I just have it and share it all the time. We earn, it's all in terms of Aini, right? We earn the right to receive by giving. If you really want to live in the TARIPAY PACHA, you need to make yourself a representative of the TARIPAY PACHA. Start to live in that way in proper Aini. That's what you offer to the world. Exactly like Elizabeth always says. And as John says, we have to start with the individual because that's where everything always started. Now, the beauty of our tradition is that we don't have to look for guidance outside. We have a seed inside, a potential. We all are carriers of the human potential that we can really express and manifest that. So you don't need to look for what to do outside. You just need to look for that inside yourself, in connection with the cosmos, in connection with what we call the Kausai Pacha. When this energy flows through yourself, you can start to really change and transform yourself. According to our vision, we understand that the world today is ruled by the third level. And third level is not bad, it's quite highly developed. We have achieved wonderful things in the world, but suddenly the world today is limited by the dual way of seeing things. The duality is in certain ways the curse of our world today. Duality is what makes you think that the world and the life are white or black, right or wrong. So you divide the world in right or wrong, and the problem is that you ended up trying to make yourself right every time and fighting whatever is wrong, or trying to think that what you do and the way you do is the right way, but the others are wrong. And so we ended up saying the things like, my way or the highway, or if you are not with me, you are against me. That is the third level mentality. And that is what we say, what Juan say was the heavy thing of the past. It's what we should not use from the past. Okay, the past was okay, maybe that was okay for a while, but we need more, we need better. And the solution never comes from the same level than the problem. So what's next? We need to rise the consciousness and we need to start to behave as a four-level people. What does four-level people means? In our tradition, the condition for being a four-level person is that you can practice at least 2 traditions or 2 religions. That's a big challenge because you'll have to learn how to put things together. You have to learn how to make Gyanantin, how to integrate things. And the only way you can really learn a second tradition is with a deep respect and love for the human doing and the humankind. If you don't respect deeply the others, you are not able to learn a second tradition. And that's the quality of the 4 level. So if we start to do that, to approach other traditions and other people with respect and care, what is the most natural thing that is going to happen? We are going to receive respect and care for ourselves from the other people. And exactly as Elizabeth said, we are going to earn the right to receive by giving, which is to put the thing upside down. Normally, we just feel entitled to receive. And they say, I am a human, so I have the right to have everything and to get everything, and so everything is there for my pleasure. But it's not like that. If you really consider yourself and others, you're going to see that in perspective, the most important thing is to be together, to have connections. In the Indian tradition, wealthy is not the person who has $1 million in the bank, or 1,000 or $1 billion, I don't know. Wealthy in our tradition is the one who has friends. And who is a friend? It's somebody who really cares about you. And that is the idea of the Aini. We can always manifest what we develop inside ourselves in the group, with the other people, in community. And that's the idea. Change yourself so you can influence your community to go to build the future. We like to talk about this moment of the war, like if we, all the humankind, is in one of these hot air balloons. Okay, there's a lot of good things that we have made across the history. This is the hot air inside the balloon, which is lifting us up. But there's some heavy things in us. It's heavy things still in the basket. Those are the sandbags. Every sandbag is an individual. It's a person who's not really resolving the Aini, who's not really living in Aini. If you take care of yourself, you remove this sand and you drop it. If you are really, you make yourself responsible for your life and the people around you, you remove the sand from the basket. And sooner or later, there's going to be a last person. When this last person drops his own sand, then the whole thing is going to live and the whole world is going to rise into the 4th level. That is, I think, what the TARIPAY PACHA is, to start to live in that 4th level, which is based in the capacity of making Yanantin, connecting with different things with respect and care, to honor every other person and every other tradition, to be able to share, because that's the rule, Aini, and then maybe together, starting from the individual but going to the global world, we can build what is this golden age of the TARIPAY PACHA, to meet again with all our human brothers and sisters, our equals, our runakuna, as the traditions say. Thank you.
Wow. I think that was the conclusion I was looking for to tie everybody together. You 4 are absolutely wonderful, but you're also big talkers, and you had told me that you're all going to run over time, and I knew you would, and I'm glad you did, because there was just so much beautiful information there. And I certainly, after listening to you, have a lot of hope for our future. So I'm going to conclude with practice. This is from one of Juan's teachers. He's a Kayawaya, or he was a Kayawaya, which is the equivalent of Paco in Bolivia. His name was Tata Lorenzo, and he taught Juan and Ivan a practice called Taka. I'm going to, I know Juan always tells me not to make fruit salad, but I feel like I also need to open up our hearts again with the Munai. So I'm going to include a little bit of the Munai practice with that as well. So if you can do this seated or standing, but have something on the earth, whether it's your feet or your legs or whatever way you're seated. We'll start with what's called Samin Chakri, which is using your intention. We're going to pull the energy down from Father Cosmos, Father Universe. And as the energy comes through you, it's like a shower of light. You're going to release all of your hucha down to Pachamama. Pachamama is the greatest hucha eater. She's going to recycle that energy and bring the energy up for you to feed your body. And we'll feed our seed, which is called our Inka muhu or Koya muhu if you're female, our royal seed, which resides just below your heart. And then at your energetic heart is called your Sonko. So we're going to bring that up. Okay, so get comfortable. And we'll start with the Sami Chakwi. So using your intention, ask Father Cosmos for his light living energy. And allowing that energy to come down from the universe. As it comes down, you're taking it into your energetic field, your pakpo. But pay attention to the crown of your head. You're also going to bring it through your hanchi, your body. And the two of these together is called your wasi, which is your home, your temple. And as that energy pours through, just unhook any hucha that you feel anywhere in your body. Let it go. Hucha is the heavy energy, Sami is the light energy. So if you feel heavy anywhere in your body, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, let it go. Then pay attention to either the soles of your feet or wherever you're seated. And make the intention of releasing all of your hucha, all of your heavy energy down to Pachamama. Keep drawing the energy down from Wirakacha, from Father Cosmos. Sending it down to Pachamama. And just in case you were wondering, we're not in her in any way. It's the same energy that she uses to break down the plant matter that we don't use. But our energy, our heavy energy is much lighter than that. So she quickly transforms it. And then if you ask Pachamama for her Sami, her light living energy, you can draw that up from the earth. And again, pay attention to where you're connected to the earth, soles of your feet or wherever you're seated. Drink that energy up through your legs, through your torso, through your arms, through your head. Bring it to wherever it's needed. And continue to fill with the Sami, the light living energy from Pachamama. This is the downward flow of energy. The Sami Chakri is really to clean and to cleanse ourselves. And the upward flow is to empower ourselves. And of course, around you, you have this pakpo, your bubble. In front of you, as Joan explained, is your past. To the left, you have all the people that you know in the world, your family, your friends, your colleagues. And to the right of you is all of humanity. Imagine that your pakpo goes down into the earth and up over your head as far as you could reach it. Then I want you to take your awareness to your solar plexus. Right at the center there is your muhu, your seed, your Inka or Koya muhu. This is the I and I am. It is the I and me speaking. But it's also our little drop of source, or God or Viracocha energy that comes to us when we're created. And we're going to make the intention of bringing that little energetic seed up into our sanko, our energetic heart. Not so much the muscle of your heart, but this energetic heart, which can expand exponentially. And our sanko is a center for our feelings. Our seed holds our will. And when we bring our feelings and our will together, we create munai, which is the highest form of love in the Andean tradition. It's a conscious love. So imagine the very center of your sanko having this brilliant white light, and that you expand it out in all directions, in front to your past, behind to your future, to your left to your family, friends, colleagues, and to your right, all of humanity. Being aware of your place on this earth, and that we're all meeting together with hundreds of people from around the world. And we're all shining our light. We're all expanding our munai to make this light grid around the world. So visualize that we're all joining up, spreading our munai, the highest form of love. Just drink that in for a moment. And let's take our little piece of that and our connection to everybody that's online here, or everybody that's going to be doing the recording, of all our friends in the Andean world and beyond. And just knowing that there's this beautiful community of people to share these gifts. These 4 teachers are like the spoke on the umbrella. There's many other Pacos that are sharing their gifts all around the world. And I give thanks for them too. Coming back into your own sanko, your own heart, back into your own pakpo, your own bubble, your hanchi, your body, feeling your feet on the earth, your place on this planet, and your love for everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Any final words to you guys?
Well, just thank you. It's a joy to spend time doing beautiful things with you all, with Juan, Joan, Elizabeth, and Helena. Thanks for this wonderful gift.
Urpichai son kolyai.
Pichai Sonko Yai.
Beautiful.
Munay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Munay, lots of Munay.
Mhm.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we didn't have time for lots of questions, but we did answer them in the chat, I think. So, oh, there's Jan McKelly.
Okay.
Can I just, yeah.
Thank you very
Can I
much
just read what
again, and thanks
oh,
everybody
okay.
who came with us. Thanks for the people who's going to receive the recording, and beautiful Aini. Thank you very much.
And there'll be an email to follow with all the details of all these teachers. So thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. I think it.
Great.
Good night. Good
Good night,
afternoon.
everybody.
Good morning to everybody. Bye.